You know why? Because I've fallen in love. And this is what people who fall in love look like.
Well, you pick the unrequited variety. It's very bad for the skin.
So, let's be real. Being John Malkovich is a weird movie. It's a film that is literally about how John Malkovich, the actor, has a portal into his mind that is one of many, throughout history, used by many, as a means to continue living on. Is this not, already kinda weird? So what if I told you that this oddball fantasy comedy wasn't just that, but rather a film that literally lays out the blueprints for how cinema works and how it will likely work in the future?
I'm afraid I have no idea what you're saying to me.
No, seriously. So buckle up, because we're about to talk about being John Malkovich. "1999 was a pretty big year for the movies. We had The Matrix, Star Wars Episode 1, The Matrix. These were films that would forever change movie history from a technological standpoint. But what about a more theoretical perspective? Enter being John Malkovich. This film, as I stated earlier, does quite a few things. There's plenty of academic and scholarly analysis pieces on the film, but they almost always cover either the psychology, philosophy, or even the neuroscience readings of the film. All of this research and literature is certainly valid, but I couldn't help but be surprised by a lack of one idea. That idea being that the film serves to tell viewers not only the very nature of cinema, but also the future of this ever-changing, very young medium. So what exactly do I mean when I say that? Well, the film's central plot is surrounding this portal into the mind of John Malkovich, and it's this portal that serves as a metaphor for the cinema. We go into a dark room, isolated from light, and we're sucked into the visions and thoughts of an artist, a performance of sorts. At some points, we can even feel deeply connected to the content that we witness, engaging with it in different, oftentimes individual ways. This is the theoretical apparatus of cinema that being John Malkovich proposes. After being discovered by Craig Schwartz, the nervous and cowardly protagonist of the story, the portal becomes the main source of conflict for the rest of the film. Much like the early advent of cinema, upon its discovery, there were those who immediately saw it as a means to make money. That's kinda like Maxine, who's the film's overall love interest, kinda. Definitely like a 1940s femme fatale, but even more mysteriously alluring and, again, just strange. In the early days of cinema, there was a lot of fascination around the convergence of the technologies that could make images move. And where there's fascination, there's capitalism. Maxine represents in one way how before cinema could even get its tiny little baby legs off the ground, it was immediately seen and made to be a revenue source, much to the dismay of many artists and philosophers of the time.
Good. We'll sell tickets.
Tickets to Malkovich?
Exactly.
I'm sad and I'm
$200.
Now that's all well and good, but how are these Malkovich portal sequences really like cinema? Most movies are not all from first person and don't often feature choosing the color of towels while eating leftover noodles. But we'll get to that. For a moment, we have to consider how our brains work on movies, and how being John Malkovich kinda understands that too. Now, the simulation of the Malkovich perspective is one thing. Big dark room, almost projected vision of a performer in a narrative, but another integral process is after the cinema. In the movie, big character changes happen very dynamically, especially after journeys into the mind of Malkovich. They almost seem random at first, having bursts of craziness that seem very weird.
Made sense. You know, I knew who I was.
But you weren't you. You were John Malkovich.
And sure, some of this is comedic and perhaps for the primary purpose of that comedy. But I'm willing to think there's a big secondary reason for this as well. That being showing the effects of really effective cinema. Sure, experiences like these might be hyperbolic, but they do really properly represent the effectual powers of movies. To better explain, I'll need some scholarly resources. Uri Hassan and, well, a bunch of other colleagues worked on a big study called Neurocinematics, the neuroscience of film. This study details how certain films, especially movies watched in a movie theater, have very direct effects on our minds. There are very specific sensations that are triggered in our brains only when we connect with films, even connecting to rushes of dopamine and adrenaline. It's that same feeling you get after you walk out of a movie and continue to think about it long after you've gone home, because it's that tremendously effectual. Like any compelling art, it never stays isolated to an initial viewing, and the ways it can affect one is far more long-term than we might expect. Edward Bernays' work in marketing is a clear indication on the power of moving images and advertising as well. Much of it connects to our internal desires. Now, theories around why we're so interested in film range quite a bit, but one of the most common findings is the human's desire for voyeuristic pleasure. This want to see through the eyes of others without any risk or moral dilemma is the bedrock of cinematic experiences, and perhaps in some ways, storytelling overall. And isn't that exactly what Being John Malkovich constantly deals with? Those very desires accessed through the mind portal? There's quite a few moments in the film where characters do not know how badly they want something until they are presented it through a screen. Craig is shown early on watching a master puppeteer perform a huge spectacle across a bridge, and even though he mocks it, it is obvious that given the circumstances, his longing for that fame intensifies after witnessing one of his contemporaries under a huge spotlight.
Gimmicky bastard.
Lottie even says, "I want that," many times as she witnesses events through the eyes of Malkovich, especially when she sees Maxine, who here is the mysterious, detached sexual force. These moments, big or small, compound in how each of the two characters, Craig and Lottie, ultimately try to achieve their goals through Malkovich in some way, like viewers subconsciously trying to find satisfaction in character actions in a film. I mean, Craig not only turns Malkovich into the puppeteer he always wanted to be, but he also marries Maxine. However, Lottie is the ultimate winner though. Both of these points connect to the psychosexual nature of cinema and how it becomes inherent in the respective spectatorship. And in this way, we can see how the cinema can truly mess with us and why many of us value film so much. In recognizing images that we relate to projected in the way it often is, combined with all the other elements of cinematic narrative, there are incredible amounts of pleasure given to an individual, or perhaps even a group. But why? Why Malkovich? Why a celebrity? Why a performance? Why do these elements of popular narrative cinema connect to so many people? Well, Being John Malkovich has answers for that as well. Performance is intrinsically connected to narrative cinema. For many viewers, it is what convinces them of the stakes at play in the story. If an actor poorly delivers lines or breaks character, the immersion of the narrative becomes subsequently broken. That being said, this relationship audiences have to performers and performances is pivotal to the movie, and it's no coincidence that the filmmakers chose Malkovich either. Beyond Malkovich being a well-respected actor, he is a Hollywood performer that is not often typecast and never plays large or starring roles. His particular place in the American film industry makes him not only a great subject for a bizarre comedy, but also serves well the fact that he is a well-trained, highly skilled performer.
You're really great in that movie.
Oh.
You play that retard.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
I have a cousin who's a retard.
Oh, thank you.
An indefinite part of narrative cinema will always be captivating performances by actors. Thus, having a recognizable face in the film that many know to be revered establishes the connection to acting. Scholar Stephen Prince highlights how significant images of familiar actors and their respective characters can be, as it is an integral part to how human beings relate to media. Prince talks about this in a study on spectatorship and cinema studies, and this connection to the idea of spectating a performer is clear with Being John Malkovich. John Malkovich is not a fictional character, he's a real person, making viewers recognizing him as an actor in the story far more significant than if the character of John Malkovich was instead some fictional popular actor in the world of the story.
It's my head, Schwartz! It's my head!
This is all part of the film illustrating how important acting and performance is to achieving the cinematic experience. Consider one of the central concepts and motifs of the film: puppets. Puppets are very much like actors, figures that represent a character in the story, having audiences be engaged by their movements, choices, and inflections. John Malkovich becomes a literal puppet in the film, in some ways representing the human process of relation, seeing oneself so deeply in a performance that one and it become one and the same. More importantly though, in the realms of cinema, his job as an actor is already that of an object for the director to guide, not so dissimilar to a puppet. Here, director Spike Jonze and writer Charlie Kaufman play with the framework of cinema, suggesting that part of the great illusion of cinematic form is the movement and performance of actors to create a narrative.
Puppets, Maxine. You see, it's the idea of being inside someone else's skin and seeing what they see and feeling what they feel.
Yikes.
So at this point, we've covered how the film cleverly shows us the power and nature of cinema. In many ways, the film works like a blueprint for cinematic experience, like I said it would. But how about the film giving us insight into the future of cinema? Through the process of visually showing the artifice and sensations of cinema, Jonze and Kaufman have created an excellent film to look at within the context of virtual reality and social media video content. Virtual reality cinema is still a very new and growing concept, as VR continues to exist in kind of a gimmicky, not exactly mainstream place. So it's safe to say much of it is still unknown. But something that is fairly mainstream is social media video content. Twitch streaming, YouTube vlogs, Instagram Live and Reels, Facebook Live, okay, maybe not as much Facebook Live as much anymore, but that was kind of big for a bit. It's all a part of a growing online entertainment industry, and there's something particularly interesting in the mundanity of the life of John Malkovich to the ever mundane everyday experiences shared in live Instagram and TikTok feeds. Many celebrities attain hundreds of thousands of viewers at once when they go quote-unquote live, sharing their experiences at red carpets, parties, or even just cooking. It seems obvious that there is a market for this personal cinema, let's call it. Live or shared experiences of the everyday. Isn't this kind of what Being John Malkovich predicts as well? People craving to escape into the lives of someone else, even for just a brief random moment? Let's go even further. What happens in a possible future with VR at the forefront of media consumption? It may sound crazy, but this Malkovich scenario, as crazy and silly as it may initially seem, might not be so far away in terms of the very future of cinema. Perhaps in identifying the elements of cinematic experience in an Americanized context, there was no way for Kaufman and Jonze to not also identify the nature of the celebrity and their respective audiences. Or, hear me out, maybe not. This could all be overthought and contrived, and maybe Being John Malkovich isn't really about any of this. It could just be a silly movie where we got to see Malkovich with boobs. But at the same time, couldn't there be something there? Could humanity's voyeuristic tendencies not be the root cause for not only our interest for the movies, but also our interest in every Snapchat and Instagram story we post? What if we could see the world through someone else's eyes without them even knowing about it? Deep down, a small curiosity could lead to a powerful rush, one that could make us question everything about our own lives. Maybe. Anyway.
Being inside did something to me.
Okay, anyway, that was Being John Malkovich. It's a movie about movies. And voyeurism. And humanity, I guess. Truth be told, I don't think this is one of those simple shot A means this theme and shot B is about this kinds of analysis projects. You might notice this in Kaufman's other works. He's not an easy read. However, at the end of the day, I think we can all say that the one part where Malkovich goes into his own head is totally beyond messed up.
Malkovich!
That's right. I'm leaving on that note. I don't really know how else to conclude the video. So thanks for watching, I guess. Like and comment and subscribe, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great.